All right. Hello, everybody. It's time, once again, for a yearly tradition that I do called the Year in Review, where I take and review the year that has just ended. It's January 1st, 2020, and you know what that means. It's time for the 2019 Year in Review from yours truly. Well, it's been kind of a quiet year in some ways, but in other ways, it's been kind of an interesting year. I guess we'll start at the beginning. We'll go all the way back to last year, January of last year. Well, I was in Massachusetts, much like I am now, for that time period. In fact, I would be in Massachusetts for some time. But probably the first interesting thing of last year would be the very cold, very not pleasant experience I had. And by the way, through parts of this interview, you're going to hear from my current roommate, Celeste. Say hi.
Hi.
There you go. That's Celeste. She'll be interjecting during parts of this little review because this first part certainly she'll remember. January 21st, I believe, was the date on that, when we had dipped down to a low of minus 11 degrees. Now, I'm from California. That's not a temperature that I'm used to seeing.
And the high was -1.
And the high was -1. That was even more bone-chilling. Thank goodness I didn't have to go out that day. But that evening, things would get interesting because I took a nap. In fact, if I remember right, we both did.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up and was walking through the studio / bedroom to discover that the carpet was wet, and there's no reason why it should have been wet. And I knew.
Still not sure what actually caused it.
We don't. It must have been a burst pipe below us, like from one of the businesses. All I can think of, because nothing else makes sense. It was too cold to be our ancient radiator heaters. At least, and also based on where the water was.
Mm-hmm.
But that was not fun. Took us a few days to get that, fully dried out. But thank goodness for we did get the maintenance folks over here to at least come look at the radiators and make sure that nothing of ours.
Thank goodness, because we were. And I forgot to mention this one. I did a review on Dabble. Everybody knows what Dabble is.
Yep.
Audio streaming platform.
Yep.
I forgot to mention this. Because of the yucky weather, we thought to shut down all of our equipment.
Yes.
It's a good thing we did.
And it's a good thing we did, based on how the water was getting really close to some of it. So I'm so glad that our stuff was shut down because of the yucky weather and because of the waterlogged carpet that would happen, which would cause us to miss a couple of shows of our internet radio shows that we were doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
we did makeup shows.
We both did makeup shows for that, and all was well as far as that goes. And so that was probably the highlight of January. And then we get into February, where
we'll have the worst Super Bowl in history.
Oh yes, we start off February with the absolute worst Super Bowl. Normally, I'm happy to record the Super Bowl. I usually enjoy, looking back at Super Bowls. Not this one. Not the 2019 Super Bowl, which was...
Patriots versus the Rams.
Patriots versus the Rams.
And let's put it this way, folks. My Patriots beat Monty's Rams' butt.
The Rams were sleeping. Let's put it that way. The Patriots were actually playing football. The Rams, I think they kind of
scored a little 3-point field goal.
Yep, that's all they did. That was it. That was all they could do.
And tell them about the bet we made.
Oh yes, we made a bet, and I wish we hadn't done this now, but it was a year ago, so we made a bet that the winning team we had we gotten pizza for the Super Bowls. Kind of something tradition we've started, and I've done that in years past as well when I've watched the Super Bowl when I wasn't here. So we had this pizza and the leftovers of it. We whoever won the Super Bowl got to have the rest of the leftovers.
Because they show a home team so far.
Right, because my Rams were in it. Because they were at the time they played good enough football to get in the Super Bowl, but I'm starting to wonder now. But then, so the deal was whoever the losing team would have to they would just get pizza crust. So the actual slices of pizza would be eaten by the winning teams. So like, had the Rams actually won, I would have gotten the leftover pizza.
Mm-hmm.
But see, the Rams didn't win. So
I got the leftover pizza.
you got the leftover pizza and I got crust. Darn little crust, and it wasn't even that big either.
And it was about the size of that little field goal.
It was about the size of the little field goal. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And it was just I don't even know how they got in the Super Bowl, really. I think they cheated their way in, if you want my opinion. Because, I mean, put it this way, a high school football team would have performed better in that Super Bowl. So there was that. But then about a week and a half later, right close to Valentine's Day, we had a little incident here that I'm glad I was around for. We had a little scammer decided they would try and make my friend lose their electricity or do something. We still aren't sure entirely what. But basically, she'd gotten a phone call earlier in the day. This is on February the 13th. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a miserable day anyway because we had no heat that day, correct?
Yeah, we had no heat. We'd gotten you moved over to my Iowa plan.
Right, that's right. We had just gotten done with that. I had signed up with IRA, which is a service I think I've talked about in the past, and I had canceled my own plan and I was sharing minutes with Celeste here. That had been done the day before, and so all was going well with that. And on the 13th, we going about our business, and we get a phone call from someone that wants to look at something on Celeste's electric bill. And she's frantically trying to get this information, and while she's trying to do that, she asks, what do you want with the bill? What is it you need? And they hung up on her. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, that's odd. Must have been a scammer. I was suspicious of it. And no big deal. We went about our day. Probably, an hour or two later?
Yep.
You get a knock at the door. Well, we weren't expecting anybody, so we're like, what the heck's this all about? And it was this
gentleman,
African-American gentleman. I remember that very clearly. He's like, yeah, I'm from Eversource, and I need to look at something on your bill. And so I'm like, okay, maybe there is something legitimate to this, because why would they call and then show up at the door? So we're like, okay, so Celeste gets on with Ira. In the meantime, I still was a little bit suspicious. I didn't know what was going on, so I entertained this guy. They're just talking to him, asking him questions, what's his name and all that stuff. And Celeste gets the information she needs off the bill, gives it to him. He proceeds to do some more things, and she signs this little
trackpad,
kind of like what you would do at like an Apple store when you electronically sign like a sales receipt or something. But we still weren't sure what was going on. So she gets a text message that she can't quite, get the link to work.
Yeah.
And at this time, she had a broken screen on her phone. And that ended up being a blessing in disguise because, it meant that no one could read what was on the screen. And so the guy that was here, he actually grew impatient. He's like, well, I got to leave. And he left. And we're like, well, it's probably a good thing we didn't do anything with that, or whatever we did. Hopefully, he claimed he'd be back the following Monday.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the day would get worse from there because I wanted to go warm up because it was very cold in the apartment here because of the fact there was no heat that night. And I curled up under the blanket, and a car alarm starts going off outside. Now, many of you won't know this, but Celeste here is not a big fan of car alarms. To the point where when one goes off, she will do anything to block it out. Now I'm trying to sleep. All of a sudden, I hear she's kind of frustrated, so she's like talking like this. She's like she's talking to her device over here, her Amazon device. She goes, play the key line. Like she's all upset and yelling, and I'm like, oh no you don't, because I'm trying to sleep. I'm trying to stay warm, and I don't need anything. I just wanted to relax. So I just jump out of bed. I come out here.
You basically scream at me, don't you?
And I scream at you, and I'm like, it's just a car alarm. The world won't end. Don't I even, like, unplug the Lady A device or something?
You didn't unplug it, but I turned on the TV, and you reached over and turned it off.
That's what I did. Yep, that's right. So he tries to turn on the TV to drown it out, and I'm like, it's going to be okay. It is a car alarm. It happens. No big deal. I'm going back to sleep. And so I go back to sleep. Try to stay warm. It's like 55 degrees in the apartment at this point. And I'm trying to do everything I can to stay warm, and I'm very frustrated. And I'm even thinking of crazy thoughts like taking a trip to Canada. Keeping in mind that I can't legally go to Canada. But I didn't care at this point. I'm like, I got to get away. If it's going to be this cold and this miserable, I got to get out of here. Well, it's a good thing I waited, because the heat would eventually come back.
It came back by the next morning.
Thank God, because then we were all had our heads about us, and you realized something wasn't right with your. You thought more about the scammer from the previous day.
I felt like I'd better call Eversource myself.
Right, Eversource is her electric company, and so she calls them, and they verify that there's nothing at all wrong with your bill. Whatever happened, you were scammed, and you should call the police. And so she, on their recommendation, does just that. And in fact, I even get to hear on the police scanner, I get to hear the actual dispatch. And I get to hear them actually ask to have her come down to let them in. So I knew they were coming right before
they called me.
They called you. So that was amusing. I didn't have a chance to warn you, though. I was going to warn you. Yep, they're on the way. I didn't have a chance to do that, though, because they called you right at the moment that I was going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But they came, and they looked at...
Because I have forwarded it to his phone.
Because I had a working screen.
Yeah.
So they could read the entire text message that was the one that was sent by the scammer. And they took one look at that and said, oh, yeah, that's a scammer. We're aware of this, and they've been doing this for a while, and we're going to catch this guy. And, well, they must have, because that guy didn't even bother us anymore after that.
No, he never came on a future Monday.
He never came on any future Monday, even now, so we've never heard from him, and hopefully we will never hear from him again. But that was just bizarre.
I did go, just to be safe, I did go block all the phone numbers that called.
That's right, that day, that's right, the original phone numbers that started all this. So that was that was the way February 13th went. And also, during the Valentine's time period, I got to enjoy some conversation hearts, my favorite types of candies to have during that season. And then on February 23rd of this year, something really interesting. To this day, I still don't know what it is. Maybe I'll find out this year if it happens again. But I was doing my radio show, my Monty's Grab Bag radio show on the Q Online, and there was a bit of fireworks that about 2 hours and a bit into the show, about 135 minutes in or so, just come out of nowhere. These fireworks start going off, and it was about, keep in mind, this is late February, it's 35 degrees outside.
It's a Saturday evening.
It's a Saturday evening. Like, what on earth would they be doing? Setting off fireworks when it's that cold outside. And so those fireworks, and it wasn't just like a couple of fireworks, it was like a whole, like some kind of fireworks show going on.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, I don't know what they were, but that was a moment that I'll never forget, because it was just so sudden, and so it
That was so random.
It's so random, and I have an archive of it on my radio show. So that was February, in a nutshell. I think I covered that pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
You get into March. March was, well, mostly good. We get to my birthday, though.
Oh, he did get a phone.
Oh yeah. In late February.
We upgraded the internet.
You're right. In late February, I had expressed interest in trying out the Sprint network because around these parts, here in Western Massachusetts, in downtown Pittsfield, the Sprint coverage is actually quite good. Surprisingly good for a carrier that's generally known as last place among all the big carriers here in the States. So I wanted to try them out again. It'd been a few years since I last used them, and Celeste here was actually nice enough. She didn't have to do this. I didn't twist your arm or anything, right, to do this.
No, you didn't.
You did this totally on your own. I was doing my own thing, and you looked into upgrading, or at the very least, I think you looked into putting me on your plan. Isn't that what it was?
Yeah.
And you ended up getting a really cool deal. It was such a cool deal that you actually came to me to discuss it.
Yeah.
And what it was they were offering both of us a deal. Basically, you get 2 lines. It was 1 line for free, and the other line gets a free phone. So Celeste got the free phone, and I got the free line.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the plan we have to this day. And the phone, she got a iPhone XR,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a iPhone XS Max. Now, it was a bit interesting trying to get the phones because we went outside to wait for FedEx. Actually, I think it was UPS, wasn't it?
It was UPS.
I think it was UPS, and they were waiting out there, and now because in this building it's hard to get packages in here because you need a key to get in the building itself, and the shipping companies don't have one of them, so no big deal. We'll wait outside. We're waiting outside at the front entrance, the logical place where you'd think they'd be, when suddenly I see, when looking at the order status, delivery attempt failed. Then I go, how's that possible? We're right here. Well,
they had gone to the side door.
They'd gone to the side. Yeah, they had gone to the side door, and we weren't even in the building. So we were able to call them and get them to redeliver later that day. And thank goodness we got it, because I wasn't going to let it slip away. I mean, they would have attempted it the next day, but I didn't want to wait that long.
Right.
Because we'd been eagerly awaiting the arrival of these phones. And we finally got them, and that was it February 28th, I think?
We called Sprint on the 28th. We upgraded the internet the 27th.
Right. Yeah, we upgraded the
26th into the 27th, didn't I?
We upgraded the internet to the highest that Spectrum had at the time.
And I forgot on my year-in-review on Dabble about Nick at 40 podcast. Oh, well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did that. That's right. That was...
I remember the first episode of that I was on was recorded that week.
Mm-hmm.
But, which is why I had to wait to go get stuff till the next day.
That's right. Well,
but then I had an interesting time because I got some accessories for the phone because I knew they were coming, so I ordered some accessories.
Yep.
And because I had the iCloud and everything kind of went nuts with messages,
yep.
I got the attempt to deliver message from Amazon before the announcement that they would
arriving.
That they would be delivering.
So it's like it was weird to see your package will be arriving today came after the message that said your package delivery failed and stuff. I was like, great. Well, we finally got everything squared away, like I said.
It took another day, but everything by the midweek.
We had everything we
wanted.
That we were expecting, and all was well. And pardon the clanging in the background. That's actually a good thing. That is the radiator heaters actually working today, unlike back in February. So we get into my birthday now, which of course is March 21st for those that don't know. I was planning that day to go see a movie
Well,
at.
we thought that day was a baseball game.
Oh yes, the baseball game. The first ever for me anyway. I don't think they've ever done this before, but the first baseball game, Major League Baseball game, being played outside the United States. In this case, it was in Japan. So it was very weird watching a live baseball game at 6:30 in the morning on my birthday. That was quite neat, and I rather enjoyed that. That was a good way to start my birthday. And I had lunch at
Arizona Pizza.
Arizona Pizza. That was a good. Yes, I love pizza anyway, so I enjoyed that. And we were gonna go see a movie called Wonder Park that had come out, and we had every intention of seeing it. We go to what was then the local mall, and only to discover that it was closed. There had been water damage and some other stuff going on, and there was not going to be a movie being seen by me or anyone else that day.
Nope.
So that was kind of a damper on my birthday, but it all, worked out in the end. We just came
we
back.
We had a snack at Barnes & Noble.
Right, we went to Barnes & Noble and I had a snack there, so that made up for it.
And then we came back and enjoyed a nice food coma.
Yes, we were definitely in our food coma by that point.
I told us as well, because we might have passed out during the movie.
Right, which would have been awkward. Like, well, I watched the movie, now what? So probably better that we didn't do that. So that was that pretty much takes care of March. And we get to April. Well, April proves to be a little more interesting than originally planned. Due to some stuff I won't totally go into here.
I kind of covered on my dabble.
Right. So due to that, I left because I'd been here since the late 2018.
October 2018.
Right. So due to various things, I left on April 12th of 19 to go back to the West Coast. And that occurred on April 12th. Had a very nice ride across the country. It was my second time on the Southwest Chief, which is the big train from Chicago to Los Angeles. And got back out to the West Coast by the 15th of April. Visited with some friends in my hometown. And ironically, I just missed one of my good friends who had paid a visit down there by like
A
couple of days, literally. In fact, he left to go back to his home area the day that I arrived. I was like, oh man, really? Like, that was horrible timing. If only I had left the day earlier, but that's okay. Before leaving, though, I had bought an iPad from Celeste. Celeste wasn't using her iPad anymore, and my sister wanted a new iPad. Hers had gotten stolen a while back, and
he had also upgraded the TV, because we'd upgraded the internet here, we upgraded the TV and got extra innings.
right, we got way I could watch all the baseball I could ever want.
Because this was before he realized he was going to leave.
Right, all this was done before I, realized that it was going to be better that I left for a bit, and so that had all been done. And during that time, I got Celeste's iPad, which my intention was to buy it and then give it to my sister, which I did when I arrived in her area.
Well, we will soon discover what she uses these things for.
Yes, we will be definitely getting to that. But at the time, she was grateful to receive it, because what I did is I surprised her with it. I had her come down to where I was staying, and she was grateful at the time. Little did I know why. A little bit later, I would find that out. Well, anyway, April was, I would finish off doing my radio show, because in at the time in Bakersfield, my sister didn't have internet, and so I had to use mobile hotspot, and it usually wasn't
The
that
mobile
great.
hotspot over in that area isn't as stable as it is here.
Right. It was. It was. I mean, the one hotspot I could have used, I only had a limited amount of data on it, so I was reluctant to use that. And then the other two that I could have used
Or very
are very
flaky.
weak and flaky. So I did try to do a show from there. In fact, I did two shows, I believe.
Yes.
From
You did one from one of the flaky ones,
Yep.
and you did one. That was when I heard a song twice.
Yes, and
I didn't realize it was twice because of the bufferiness.
yeah, because it was all buffery. So you
I
found
looked
that
at
out
it in the archive after noticing how much shorter it was when I listened on
on
Amazon.
when you listened on your Amazon devices and realized the song was way shorter than it was on the show itself, and you're like, what happened here? And then you pointed it out to me that, oh yeah, by the way, I believe you played this song twice, and I didn't believe you until you showed me the
The piece in the archive.
section in the archive. I'm like, oh, right. And I'm still not sure how I did that. I don't know if my mind was just not. I was interacting, I think, with you or something. Maybe I just wasn't looking at my. But how would I have gotten the song to play twice?
You probably hit enter on it because it only listed in your list once.
Right.
You
Right.
probably hit enter on it just at the right moment, thinking you didn't check the next track or something.
Probably, and then it just started playing again. And I never knew it, and I didn't even catch on until you said something. So that was kind of an interesting moment there. And so we get to,
And you did your last show on the better hotspot.
right. I do my very last show on the better hotspot of the ones I had, and then I'm just like, yeah, I'm done with it. I had a good run.
You went to be a fill-in status, but you never filled in for anybody. It was so the
It was so
hotspot.
flaky, and so I was never sure what I'd be doing and what my environment would be like, and so I never actually did fill in for anybody. But I did do those last two shows, and then the next few months would be torture in many ways. Actually, May, I guess, was okay. I mean, I'd gotten, due to issues I definitely don't want to mention publicly, I had gotten behind on bills pretty majorly, and I was also trying to help where I could. I was also trying to help Celeste out with some
Because we were
situations.
prorated for some of the Spectrum and Sprint stuff.
Right, and so we had big bills that needed to get paid, and they were already going to be late and everything else, and this and that. So in May, I decided to do something that I rarely do, and I'm just like, well, screw it. I'm going to use all of my funds, practically, that I do have to catch us up on all that stuff.
And we got caught up.
We got caught up,
But he had nothing for the month.
but I had nothing at all, and it was like, And then,
In fact, neither none of us had nothing.
right, it was a very kind of down time, actually. Well, really, May and June. Although in May, I discovered, thanks to another friend of mine, there's this party line, chat line, whatever you want to call it, called The Blind Leading the Blind. And it's basically a system where you call in and you can chat with people. And the idea is, after you've been on it and accumulated so many minutes, you actually, after 90 days of being on it, you actually get paid for your being on there. And it's not much, but, it's something. And it was kind of a neat thing to do when I had nothing else to do. So Celeste and I actually both kind of got in on that. And we started that in mid-May. And June was, I think that pretty much covers May. I don't think there's anything else in my May that really
Yeah, nothing else in your May that was really
stands
spectacular.
out. Yep. So then we get into June. And one day in June, I remember.
June 14th when it happened.
Oh, good. You remember the exact date.
Because you missed episode 7 of the show that I took over.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was. That's how you
It's the
remember.
following day on the 15th.
That's right. On June 14th, my sister wanted to go to the mall. And I was happy to go to the mall. I always love going to the mall because the Apple Store is there. And I love playing in the Apple Store. And so I just, as I often would do, I'll just make sure I have enough funds on my various cards to, be able to make a mall trip. I was confident that I did because I hadn't used much of anything of what I had left. So I'm like, yeah, I could spare a little bit. And I call up my providers and I check my funds and they say, you have like $3 remaining. I'm like, wait a minute. Why do I only have $3 remaining? I had well over 150. I'm like, what's going on here? And I'm like, oh no. 158. And so I look at my transactions and I see Amazon purchases. In fact, I see 2 Amazon purchases for the exact same price. And I'm like, what is this? And I started to fear the worst. Like, is my sister up to her old tricks again? Because she had done this before, but, it had been a while. So I confront her about it very forcefully and discover that indeed it was her, and she's the one asking me to go to the mall, okay? And yet she's the one that also took it upon herself to, without permission and without me knowing, use my card to buy herself 2 copies of Little House on the Prairie. I would find this out later when I would drag her Amazon password out of her, and I practically had to do that. I had to go into her Amazon account, and I noticed that my payment method was listed in her Amazon account, and I never put it there. So I knew that this was not cool. And, well, let's just say I didn't go to the mall that day. And I wasn't going to be going to the mall that day or any time in the immediate near future. Certainly not with almost nothing to my name, thanks to her. So that really, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I turned all my stuff off. I was talking to you on a regular basis, Celeste, but not that day.
Right. In fact, you didn't even listen to my show. I made him listen to the archive on Father's Day.
Right.
Father's Day was that weekend, and I was going off to celebrate with him. I'm like, well, I'm gone. You're listening to this.
Yep. And I finally did. So we, but that particular day, I was just so upset. I didn't like that she'd started doing that again.
And there was no way for you to escape then because she used all your money.
Yeah, she used all my money, and there was no way that I could just get out of there. So I toughed it out. I mean, I wasn't going to obviously be going anywhere. And in fact, I didn't even get to go to Field Day, which is an annual event for ham radio operators where, you take all your equipment and you try to go off the grid, basically. You hook all your radio equipment up using emergency power, generators, solar power, batteries, whatever you want to do, and make as many contacts as you can in a 24-hour period. It's an event that I've done. My most recent field day was back in 2013, and I thought I could go to the one in 2019, and the trouble is I probably could have gotten there, but I might not have been able to get back, thanks to what she had done.
Oh, you forgot to mention you got an Echo Dot in February.
Oh, yeah, I did. Yes, right. I did get an Echo Dot in February. That was, in fact, it was back-ordered. The Echo Dot in February was a back-ordered product. I actually ordered it in January, didn't I?
Yes.
I ordered it back in January, but it wasn't going to be delivered for like 2 or 3 weeks, if I remember correctly.
So he got it, And I'm bringing it up because on what would have been field day, his sister went out of town, so he got to play with waking up to music on the Echo Dot.
Yep.
And use DoorDash for the first
And I got
time.
to, and I was just getting to the DoorDash thing. I believe that was June 22nd.
Yes, it was.
Is when I got to play with DoorDash. I'm like, let's try this out, see if it works. Because I had the place all to myself, and
You had just enough money to get some food.
Literally. So I'm like, I'm going to try this. And I ordered from Taco Bell as my restaurant of choice for my first DoorDash order. And I got it, and everything went perfectly, and I enjoyed it, and it was yummy, and I remember that order like it was yesterday. I was hooked from that point on. Even though I wouldn't do another DoorDash order for
several
months, it was there, and I would end up preferring Celeste. I was so happy with it.
And it would come in handy when we get to several months down the road.
Yes, indeed. So that's pretty much June in a nutshell. Now we get to July. Now, July, there was a couple of interesting things. First, July 4th was interesting for a couple of reasons. I got to watch the 4th of July parade here in Pittsfield from Bakersfield because it was being streamed, it was being broadcast on a local radio station here that just happens to have an online stream. So Celeste and I both watched the parade live. Her from her living room here, and literally so because the parade goes right down her street. So she'd hear the commentary on the radio and then hear the band or whatever, 10 minutes later. And wasn't that an interesting experience?
Oh, it was.
And so there was that. And then later that day, I don't remember exactly what time. I want to say it was like noon or...
It was certainly afternoon for me.
Right. I'm laying in my sister's bed. I like to call it the memory foam because she's got a memory foam mattress. So I was laying on the memory foam, and it starts to shake. I'm talking with a friend of ours from not too far from where I was, out in Santa Barbara, and he didn't notice anything right away, but I knew something had happened because the shaking lasted longer than just a truck passing by. Mm-hmm. It was just tiny enough, and I think
it was quick.
Yeah, it was definitely an earthquake, and it would end up being a 6.4, I believe, out of centered in Ridgecrest, which is about 100 miles from where I was, out in the Mojave Desert. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. We had an earthquake, and my sister hardly even noticed it because it was just kind of a light shaking, not really anything to really get uptight about at all. So that was it. We went about our day, no big deal. And
we watched a baseball game from 3,000 miles away.
Oh yes. So since we still had Extra Innings over here, Extra Innings is a service you get through your TV provider where you can watch any out-of-market baseball game that you want, as it happens. So, because we had that chat room I told you about, I would often call into that, and whenever Celeste would be gone, she would leave the TV on, and I could actually control her TV through the Spectrum TV app. So I could put it on these baseball games and watch them remotely. So I didn't have to have Extra Innings at my sister's to do this.
Which was nice because she's not a baseball person.
Right. So I didn't have to...
Although when we get to later on what she's done, I'm so tempted to order her Extra Innings next
season.
And we put those TV just randomly on baseball games
every so often, right? I'll give that some thought. But anyway, so on the next day, on July 5th, that evening, I'm laying in bed again, and I start feeling shaking again. But this time, it's bigger, noticeably so. And it's, not enough to be concerned. I mean, I was starting to get concerned, but not like, oh God, is the apartment going to fall on me, kind of thing. But my sister, on the other hand, she was not having any of it. She was like, okay, you can stop any time now, as the ground is still shaking.
Mhm.
I could hear her in the other room. She wasn't in the room I was in. She was in the living room.
Yeah.
I was in the bedroom. And the shaking just kept going and going and going. I'm like, this thing is definitely bigger than the quake we had just the day before.
And I was awakened to the aftermath of this news.
Right. You found out actually later that night, I believe, on Twitter, was it, right? Or did I tell you?
It was on. I was looking at stuff on Twitter and Facebook. I was trying to reach you. I couldn't find you.
Right.
And I'm like, oh no, is everything okay?
Yep, because I was busy watching the news. In fact, I remember we had an aftershock while watching the news, so I actually felt the shaking from the recliner that I was sitting on of the aftershock. So I actually technically felt 2 earthquakes that night on the 5th. Turns out the second earthquake was a 7.1, centered in the exact same location as the quake the previous day.
Well, explain why you felt it more.
Exactly. And that was, I mean...
In fact, the next day I'd gone out once again, leaving the TV on, and it was tuned to the news about earthquake coverage when I came back.
Yep, they were doing earthquake coverage, and Celeste was able to get the latest update on that as a result of me watching it from 3,000 miles away on her TV. So that was kind of the highlight of July, really.
Well, then there's Apollo 11 week.
Oh yeah, then there's Apollo 11 week. Yes, Apollo 11 week, which began on July 16th. That was fun. There were 2 different things that were done for this. This was the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing back in 1969. So what they did, there were 2 feeds. One was just a YouTube feed of the public space to ground communications. You can't really call it air to ground because, well, they're in space.
Right.
So the space to ground communications between mission control and the crew, and that's all you had. It was a simple feed. But then they had this thing called Apollo 11 in real time, and what this was really cool. It actually was a website that you could follow up to the second the Apollo 11 mission in real time as it was 50 years earlier. And they actually had a feed there of the space-to-ground communications on one channel, and as a stereo effect, on the other, on the left channel was the main feed, and then on the right channel was the mission control loop. So in other words, what you would have heard if you were a mission control person tracking the flight of Apollo 11. Like if you were wearing your headset and listening to all the mission control people checking on the systems and seeing what was going on, that was what you heard.
Now, when we had our little chat room, I had some good desktop speakers.
Yes.
So I streamed, once I heard about this, I checked it out. It's like, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I streamed it in the room.
You did, and I would then call in, and so instead of, I didn't have to be tethered to my laptop trying to watch this on my somewhat spotty internet. So Celeste actually helped me to enjoy that coverage as much as we could. And it was tough at times because, the astronauts would often work late into the night. But we generally got a good idea of what was going on. And on July 19th, which was Lunar Orbit Day, as we've come to call it, where they, insert themselves in the lunar orbit and do checkouts to make sure they're going to be good for the moon landing, we, well, I wasn't feeling... I had been around earlier that day listening to...
He caught my show.
I caught your show, and then I laid down, and I just didn't feel like moving the rest of the day. And no one heard from me that day. And you tried to reach me.
I was concerned. I was like worried because I knew this fascinated him, and it was just
weird that I wasn't listening to it. And because she'd streamed it in the room as she normally would, but I wasn't showing up like I normally would have. And I wasn't responding to her voicemails or anything because I turned all my phones off. So, fortunately, I was back with the world again on the 20th, which is the big day. If I had been gone that day, I think there would have been a problem.
I think a police officer would have been showing up to the door for welfare check.
And I'm pretty sure that that's a serious comment. I'm pretty sure you would have actually gone through with that had I not shown up on the 20th. So I get to listen to the moon landing, the actual moon landing, which Celeste tried to broadcast on her show, but due to not being able to test the setup for that in time, because we had the timing off. We were looking at the timing of the, because one of the things the Apollo 11 in real time site did was it gave a timeline of when things would happen. Well, some of it was in Central Time and some of it was in Eastern Time.
I thought I was going to miss it altogether, so I didn't quite prepare.
Right. And then I realized, wait a minute, that's in Central Time. And I think with 10 minutes to go, I told you, oh, by the way, the moon landing is going to be during your show, not after it.
Yeah.
And you quickly tried to make it work. It didn't quite work. But I did get to hear it. But we would get to hear the moonwalk later.
Which I was worried I would miss because I was invited to dinner.
Yeah, she got to go to dinner at her parents' place. They had steaks that night. I wasn't quite that lucky. I was 2,000 miles away. So I just had, I think, burritos or something that night. But we did get to catch the moonwalk, which was a few hours later. And you just got home in time to be able to provide that. Actually, you had actually left everything in the room so I could listen.
Yeah, I did.
Anyway.
Yeah, because I wasn't going to be here.
Right. So I was listening anyway. Then I was very, very happy when you got back in time to catch the moonwalk and Neil Armstrong's famous historic words when he stepped on the moon.
Yes.
And so you got to actually hear that as though you had been there in 1969.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I enjoyed that.
I did too.
The whole week was awesome. I actually got to catch the splashdown of Apollo. You missed that.
Mm-hmm. He slept through a little one, but my day to sleep through it was come back
to Earth Day. Yeah. So we each had our little sleep day for that. But the whole concept of what they did for Apollo 11 in real time and the feeds that were offered was awesome during that week. So I hope in years to come that maybe that'll happen again, maybe in 2029 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. That takes care of July. We get into August. Now, August starts to get a little interesting. I started to get fed up with my financial situation and the way things were going, and I just decided, you know what? Let's switch banks. So I contacted a friend of mine, local friend of mine that I'd known for a few years, and I said, you take me to go get a bank account at Chase. And they're like, sure. And, well, I believe I missed your show that day, so I could do that.
Well, you missed part of it anyway, but I understood.
Right, you knew why I was doing that. It wasn't like the day a while back before when I missed your show and you didn't know why.
Yeah.
So I got my new bank account. I had to settle some old debt I had with Chase, but it was doable. I was able to do that and get that all...
And finally, by that month, both of us were finally more or less caught up on bills.
Yeah, and that was a relief, too. I was like, thank God. It had only taken us 3 months to get to that point. Because we've been helping each other out in the in this time. So I was grateful, very grateful that that things were looking up. Except that...
Well, when it comes to September, things get grim again. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that.
But in the rewarding for getting caught up and things, well, he did go to the mall on the busiest day of the year.
Yeah, yes, I did. I got to go to the mall on one of the busiest days of the year. Basically,
back to school weekend.
Back to school weekend, and you know, my sister and I went to the mall. And I was amazed how crowded it was. I mean, it felt like I was back on the Las Vegas Strip on New Year's Eve.
In fact, one of the last videos before this one, if you're looking in order, will be a video from the Apple Store at that mall.
Yep, that's correct. In fact, it's... I don't remember if it's the exact one before this one, or if it's... I think I did one between then and now, but I'll have to go back and look. But it's one of them, definitely one of the most recent videos before this review here. You'll see me doing a review of not a review, but a little video of me at the Apple Store on my Sprint phone. So in fact, that was up to that point I hadn't even taken video on that phone, but that was a good day. That was the mall trip that should have happened 2 months earlier. So I was grateful to finally get that done.
But then, shortly after that mall trip, he decides he's gonna go visit a friend in Reno.
Yep, that proves interesting. I go, I go up to Reno. Well, I go to Sacramento, and Sacramento is the connecting point to, where you make your connection if you're going to go to Reno, or if you're going to go up to Oregon, places beyond that. So I get to Sacramento, and I'm waiting for the red caps that usually come and help make the connecting train, or whatever you need to go do. No one shows up. Meanwhile, I'm hearing announcements. Final boarding call for Reno. I'm going, what? There was no way I was going to make the link to Reno when I didn't even know how to get there. Okay, so I at this point was like, okay, when is the next? I actually had called up Amtrak and rescheduled my ticket for the next connection that I could make, which was still like 2 hours from then. Fortunately, right around that time, in fact, there was almost a possibility that I would have to return, because I had gotten a false report from my sister that the person I was going to go see had actually gone to my hometown, because they're from there. So I'm like, well, great, maybe, because I hadn't heard from them. I was actually going to go up and surprise them, and, if I had to go the other direction, I needed to know. So I called my friend up that I was trying to go see, and found out that they were, in fact, in Reno, and that my sister was pulling my leg. So I finally make my next connection. I go up to Reno, stay at my favorite hotel up there, the Nugget Hotel in Sparks, Nevada, which is just outside of Reno. And the really cool part about staying there is there's the bus stop where the Amtrak bus goes is like right there, right in front of the hotel. How cool is that? So I get there, and I hang out with Robert. The next day, I'm there. I'm expecting to be there for like a week. Well, the next day, I don't spend much time with my friend because he's busy running errands and stuff. And we do have a good meal together. And in fact, we eat at one of the restaurants in the hotel. But then the next morning, I receive an email with a train reservation, basically a train reservation confirmation in it. And due to various circumstances, I needed to get out of Reno. So my trip there was cut way shorter than I expected. I was literally only there for
a day and a half.
Yeah, not even 2
like
days.
36 hours or something.
Yep, it was about that, 36 hours. I'm like, okay. So, I mean, it was a nice getaway. I liked it. It's always good to go up there.
Gave his sister time to get internet.
Yes, because my sister got internet while I was gone. So that was a nice surprise. She actually called me while I was at the Nugget to tell me that she was getting internet installed. In fact, that happened while I was on my way back, I believe.
Yeah.
So I get back, and I discover that, yes, she does have internet, and I'm very grateful of this, and I didn't have to just rely on hotspot anymore. And then we get to the end of August, and,
she's constantly bugging us for what's on the chat.
Yeah, she'd be, like, not every 30 seconds, but it sure seemed like it. Every time we'd be chatting, my sister would be saying, like, oh, you guys talk too much, and yada, yada. So then we get to September, and,
she pulls the last straw.
I make a very grim discovery. I'm noticing that slowly but surely over the course of a weekend, funds of mine in all of my funding sources, and I have a few, they're all gradually disappearing. And I'm like, what is going on? And the main reason I was even made aware of this was on, I believe it was a Sunday night.
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, that's what it was. I get an alert from one of my funding sources that notifies me of such things. And it says, a purchase has been made from this store for this amount, and it was, I hadn't even been doing anything. I'd been laying in the bed, relaxing, and I see this purchase notification come up. I'm like, what the hell? So I storm out of the bedroom, and I yell like crazy at my sister, like, what?
She's on the iPad that I've reluctantly sold.
Yep, she's on the iPad. She's like not even
aware
that she had done what she had done. I'm like, what are you doing? And she wouldn't give me a straight answer, and I then do some more digging to find out that that purchase wasn't the only purchase that she had made. She had made other little miscellaneous purchases.
Including from a furniture store to buy a quilt.
Right, including from a furniture store, an online furniture store to buy a quilt, and a bunch of other useless things. And I was...
Without permission.
Without permission, and without even so much as even... Letting me know that I'm going to... Even if, she had done it to get me burgers or fries or something.
If she had asked, there's something I'm interested in, I don't have the funds, can I
do it?
Some money, can I do this?
Right, and that would have been fine with that, like any normal human being, but my sister is not a normal human being. And at this point, I had had enough. And in fact...
Even I had enough.
Even you had had enough, and you actually went so far as to...
So, well, first of all, I blocked her on Facebook. We'd actually become pretty good friends. She was listening to one of my shows.
Yeah, she was becoming a pretty regular listener. In fact, she would even
ask me.
She would send him requests. She would even ask me, okay, are you listening to Celeste's radio show today? She'd look forward to me tuning it in on the dot every weekend. Well, that wasn't going to happen after that.
And then, not only that... I had some big annual purchases coming through and birthdays coming up in my family, so I had to make sure there was enough in there.
In your account?
In my account.
To do
this, but then I'm like, okay, I have enough. This is what I can comfortably send him. I literally sent him what I could.
Right.
And I remember putting in a note. In fact, I sent it. It's funny. Had he not been waiting because he thought he'd been scammed.
Right.
Had he not been waiting for a new card from one of his payment thingies.
Mm-hmm.
I had literally given him that money just in enough time. I was like, get on the next train, get out here, I'll see you Thursday.
Right, and that's literally what it said, too. That's literally what the note said.
So I was like, you gotta get out of there.
Yep.
This is ridiculous. This can't keep going.
Right.
And we even set cards coming to my address. I waited outside because we had to send them via FedEx because for whatever weird reason.
They weren't arriving via normal mail, so... We sent them by FedEx, and
I held them in my nightstand drawer for one of them back in June when all this started, the other one in September.
When the whole everything hit the fan, and
I even had the app for his Chase account on my phone so I could monitor things.
Right, and let me just make sure we're still recording. I'm sure we are, but I want to make sure.
Voiceover on, camera, take picture, button.
Just a moment, folks.
Take picture, stop record, take picture.
Okay, good, we are.
Stop recording video, speech off.
Okay, so
I sent him the money. Of course, he had to wait a week, but he kept it there, like, don't let anybody touch this.
Right.
So, luckily, nobody touched it.
Yep, and I got my card that I was waiting for. And I decided, though, because if I'm going to leave and go take another cross-country trip, I'm going to make the most of it. I didn't want to have this whole episode with my sister be the only thing I think about for 3 days while I travel across the country. So I'm like, why don't I go visit friends in Ohio?
And actually, it worked out well because I had a very mournful experience occur during all this.
Right, and she talks about that in her review, which is
over on Dabble.
Over on Dabble for those that know what that is and know how to get to it. So, in fact, I believe I left when you were at your friend's funeral, if I remember right.
No, the day I found out of her death.
Oh, that's what it was. That's when I left. Oh, and that was an adventure, too. The day I left, I had one of my local friends take me to the train station in just enough time to get there at the original scheduled time. No big deal, but it turns out that due to, I think, some track maintenance up north, one of the inbound trains was over 3.5 hours late, which caused the whole schedule for the day
to go nuts
and go wacko. So had I known this in advance, I actually could have had my friend pick me up and take me to the train station about, what, 2.5 hours later?
Yeah.
But as it was, no big deal. I you know, gave him some gas money, and we got there at the original time, and I waited around at the train station, and I was expecting to get on the train and go to L.A. Oh no! By the time that the schedule got worked out, I ended up having to depart from Bakersfield and go to Barstow to pick up the Southwest Chief. There was no way I was going to make it to L.A. in time to catch it.
At least the Amtrak thought of this and switched his reservation.
Right, yeah, that was the first time I'd ever seen Amtrak actually make the move. I didn't have to do anything. In fact, it was really neat. I'm sitting there on the bus to Barstow, and all of a sudden I get an email with a revised itinerary. And I thought, well, that's cool. You know, that's really, really neat. Really awesome. So I catch the train in Barstow, and I get out to Chicago and on to Ohio. And I first, I spend time with. I get to meet a longtime online buddy of mine. His name is Shane. Good friend of mine that I've known for a few years, and they live in a condo with a bunch of other roommates that all kind of help out, and they have like the top spectrum internet and lots and lots of Google Home devices. They do have a Amazon device somewhere in the place, but I never saw it. It was upstairs, and I had a great time. I had a good time. I was there for
A long weekend.
Long weekend that weekend, and then I went out to go visit another friend of mine that I hadn't known for as long, but they go by Just Joe, and I went and saw them in Youngstown, Ohio, and I was there.
Tell payday.
So basically out until payday. They were very awesome.
Even though I'd given him some more money, he wanted Little Caesars.
I wanted Little Caesars that night. So thanks for letting me have Little Caesars. It was good pizza, and
I did pay for the remainder of his trip the next week.
Right.
Because this lady had a daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and it was getting to where, he could stay a couple of weeks, but
that was
water's welcome.
Yeah, that was about it, and I was fine with that. And I got, as my adventures often do of late, there was an adventure when I left Ohio. Now, originally I was gonna do just the main route from. Actually, let me stop this review here because I swear I'm hearing in your headset that you have messages. So I'm gonna stop this review here. We're gonna do a part 2 of this.
Are you sure? Hold on. Well, yeah, you can keep talking. I'll look at this real quick.
Okay, so when I left Ohio, I was originally going to do the route that I had originally planned, which was to go from Youngstown out to Pittsfield. Well, as luck would have it, the Greyhound station in Youngstown is kind of a smaller station and not always manned, and there was I was told by the Uber driver that was taking me there that it might not be manned, and you might not be able to get your ticket there because I hadn't actually booked it in advance because I wasn't sure exactly what day I was leaving until it practically happened. Well, no big deal. My Uber driver offered to take me all the way to Cleveland because I had to get on the train in Cleveland. So I actually, thanks to Uber and that driver, I got to take my longest ever Uber trip on that adventure. It was about I believe like an 80-mile trip or whatever. The trip was like $87, and that was really cool. I actually enjoyed being able to do that. But the getting to that train station in Cleveland is actually a nightmare, an absolute awful nightmare. I don't recommend, if anybody is departing from Cleveland, you better be with someone that's sighted, or you better be going like on a train that's like leaving there, because you're not going to just find the train station. GPS won't get you there, and every time you look, it's like in the middle of a highway. So that was an adventure. I ended up spending all night on the.
What we call the deserted steps of Cleveland.
Yeah, we call it the deserted steps of Cleveland, because it was all I remember is it was right across the street from the Cleveland Indians baseball stadium. So had there actually been a game going on there, I probably could have gone there for the night and enjoyed the baseball game.
And without needing to use extra innings in my TV.
Right, I could have been there in person, but sadly
That wasn't the case.
That wasn't the case that night. But
I was so relieved when I woke the next morning to find out he made his train after he having to call the police.
yes, I had to get the police involved so that they could find me, so that I could actually get to where I needed to go, because it was crazy. I've decided that if I ever go back to Ohio, I'm taking a bus, because I could see myself going back to Ohio. I had a good time out there, but it won't be by train. And the good news is, if I do it from here, I'd leave from the same place. You know, the same departure location here. The bus and train station are the same place.
Yeah.
Which is nice. So I finally get to Pittsfield.
Which I have no clue he's even getting here.
Yes, that's the other neat part of this. I decide to surprise the crap out of Celeste, because I love doing those things. So she has no idea that I'm even in town until she sees a check-in, because I do regular check-ins on my Swarm app. She sees that I'm checking in at Liberty Pizza. And what were your thoughts at this point? I mean, were
I'm
you...
like, wait a minute, did I read that right?
Yeah, you're like, what? That can't be right. It's notifying me that he's nearby at Liberty, but he's in Ohio. What's going on here?
I mean, did somebody steal his phone or something? I better go check on this.
Right. So you actually go down. Were you planning to have Liberty Pizza anyway?
I think I was. It's funny that I saw that when I was thinking of going down there.
Right. So you go down there.
I'm checking in, and all of a sudden, I feel this body bumping.
Yep. And we end up literally bumping into each other on the sidewalk as I'm going up, because I was getting ready to go inside to place my order, and there she is, outside. And I was actually gonna, once I got inside, I was gonna call her. Well, I didn't have to, because she was going down to get her dinner, and I was going to order my dinner. Well, instead of her picking up her dinner, we ended up eating at the restaurant. And so I caught her up on everything that had happened and my wild adventure from the night before, and I ended up hanging out here for...
You stayed here for a little over 2 weeks.
Yep, it was about, because I know I spent Halloween here.
Well, you were
Or was
here,
it-
No, you were here till literally a year to the day you arrived originally.
Oh, that's right. Yep, that's
and
what
then
it
you went
was.
to Springfield.
And then I went over to Springfield, and that was awesome. That's when I discovered the Apple Store and the Holyoke Mall in general. I absolutely fell in love with that place the instant that the reason I even went to Springfield is I had a friend over there that she's going to school over there, and I thought, well, gee, why don't we hang out for a bit and just kind of get to know each other in a bit? So we did, and I went to the Holyoke Mall while I was out there, because I'd heard she told me about this place, and she's kind of busy, so while she was off doing school things, I was off checking out the mall, and I loved it. I mean, I got there, got great help from both the store employees at the stores I checked out, which were Best Buy and, of course, the Apple Store. But then the mall security was absolutely great. They got me where I needed to go. They made sure that I was safe, and just a very pleasant experience. In fact, I want to take you there one day.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if the weather decides to cooperate, we can take a day trip over there one of these
Which
days.
can be done, thankfully.
Yes. Now I was out there for a few weeks, and then I
Surprised me again.
surprised you a second time.
Because friends were getting ready to go to Thanksgiving.
Right, they were getting ready for their Thanksgiving
finals and all.
plans, and they had finals to get ready for and whatnot. So I come back to our. See, let me explain. Liberty Pizza out here is a perfect meeting spot when I want to surprise Celeste, because all she has to do is leave her apartment, go downstairs, and it's like
At the corner of the block.
at the corner of the block right there. So I mean, what a perfect place to
Just meet up.
and coordinate things. So I get to Liberty Pizza, and I'm eating. This time I'm eating a burger and fries because
You can get those
you
things.
can get those things there. And by the way, I'm hearing other possible message notifications on your end. You might want to check.
Right. We are leaving here at 4 o'clock. You can keep going, but at about 3:15.
What time is it now?
It's a little after 2:30.
Okay.
But we're closer to the end of the year, so
Okay, yeah, so we're getting there. So I'm eating my dinner, which consisted of a burger and fries,
which you can get those at these places.
which you can get those at this place, which is a really good, by the way. And all of a sudden, I get a phone call from none other than Celeste's mom, and I was surprised because she never calls me. I hadn't even gotten around to calling Celeste yet, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm watching you eat. And it turned out that they were getting ready to head to the store. Isn't that what you were doing?
Yes.
You were heading to the store, and I'm like, well, I was gonna, surprise Celeste. Your mom actually thought that I was being rude by doing that, but that's only because she didn't realize that I was actually going to contact you. She just caught me before I had a chance to.
Right.
Because remember, I called you actually right after that
Yeah, you did.
and told you where I was, and you were like totally surprised, but you were actually cool enough and got some groceries for me
I did.
because you knew I was in town again.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I got to help you carry the groceries up.
Yeah, and then leave your cane at Liberty.
Yes, that was I was getting to that. My in the because you called me to tell me that you were heading back and that could I help carry the bags up? Well, sure. I was done eating by this point, and I get up there not even thinking about it because I'm busy trying to get the bags up here, and I go and sit down for a minute and realize, oh, where's my cane at? And I go looking, and
We look everywhere.
I look
nothing.
everywhere, and I'm not finding it in my backpack. I'm like, where is it? Your mom actually thought I had it with me, when in fact I didn't. So I called Liberty Pizza. You know how weird it was calling Liberty Pizza not to place an order?
Oh yeah, it was very weird.
That was weird. I'm like, yeah, I left a white stick over there.
I explained what it looks like.
Yep, and I did that, and they found it, and I quickly went down and
Grabbed it and all.
was very good, thank goodness. But that was a little scary moment because if I had lost my cane, I mean, there was a spare I could have used, but I didn't want to have to go that route if I didn't have to.
Right.
So that pretty much started the
His time living here.
my time that I finally decided, you know what, with everything that's gone on with my sister, I am.
Not going back out.
I can't go back over there. So why don't I stay here where I know it's safe because I'd been here last year. Yes, I have to come here during the winter yet again.
But this year, he's been behaving.
Yes, the heat has been behaving this year, so I haven't had a chance to complain. So if we can get through the next,
3 months.
I would say, yeah, about 3 months, certainly the next 2.5 months, we will be good. And I can say I made it through a Massachusetts winter without
Issues.
too many complaints.
So then we get to celebrate Thanksgiving.
We get to celebrate Thanksgiving, which was very, very awesome and good. We watched the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and we have yummy dinner at your folks, the traditional yummy Thanksgiving goodness.
And you also joined another station.
Yes, I joined 98.6 The Mix to bring back
Monty's
Monty's
Grab Bag.
Grab Bag. And I am grateful that I have more listeners now. I kind of feel motivated to do my show again because one of the reasons I stopped doing my show was the lack of listeners that I would get. And it's like, what's the point of broadcasting if no one's going to listen
Other than me.
other than you? I mean, I could broadcast to you right now. I'm sitting right here.
Mm-hmm.
So there seemed no point. So it was good to be back on. I usually get like 5, 6, 7 listeners or more on any given show. So I'm on Wednesdays from
2
to
to 4
4
Eastern.
Eastern, 1 to 3 Central, 11 to 1 Pacific, if anybody ever wants to listen. Beginning on January 8th, I'll be resuming. You'll notice I'm not on right now. So there you go. Where are we now? We are at...
So then, we'll come to December.
Oh, yes, December. That was a fun month.
We'll go to the concert again.
We go to the Christmas concert, just like we did. In fact, that's up here.
Yep.
That's the most recent video. I hope and I loved it just like I did last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was time to do birthday things
And Christmas thing.
and Christmas things because all that happens around the same time.
And you were disappointed by something.
Yes, I was very disappointed by something because one of the things that I know that Celeste wanted was something she had put on her wish list last year. Well, I need to rephrase that. In 2018, that's going to take some getting used to. In 2018, she put something on her wish list that she really wanted, something that some of you might be familiar with. It's called Home Improvement, the TV show. And there was a 20th anniversary complete collection. And she didn't get it last year. She thought, no big deal. I'll probably get it sometime in 2019. That didn't happen. But I thought, well, maybe I can get that to her for Christmas. That was my original thought. And I go to look it up when I was first looking into what am I going to get her for her birthday and Christmas. And I look at Home Improvement, and it goes, this item is currently out of stock, and we don't know when or if it will return. And my heart just sank. I was like, well, this was my big Christmas present for her. This was my plan. What am I going to do now? I remember, I think I even told you about it.
Yeah, you did.
I told you.
And I was even sadder because I couldn't even watch it on Hulu anymore.
Yeah, by this point it had left Hulu.
And while we were enjoying Disney Plus, which came out...
Oh, yeah, in November, Disney Plus...
And he watched Hannah Montana and Smart Guy and Smart House.
Yep, I watched Hannah Montana, binge-watched the whole thing, loved it. I got to watch...
Watched Smart Guy.
And I binge-watched all of Smart Guy in like 3 days.
And he watched Smart House.
And Smart House, the movie, which probably nobody... I bet you nobody watching knows what those are, but you look them up if you want to know. They're really good. So... so I'm like...
But Home Improvement's not on Hulu anymore.
Home Improvement's not on Hulu anymore. I'm like, great, what am I going to do? Well, I finally decided, okay, for her birthday at least, I can get her this pack of 4 fast chargers that...
Because my phone had a phone that was portable.
Right, because last year she didn't. So I'm like, I'm going to get her these, and then she'll have plenty. And then we can have spares if we need them. And that's what I got her for her birthday.
And for Christmas...
And then for Christmas...
you got me an Amazon...
I did something really interesting for that.
And I forgot to mention this part in my dabble.
Right. What I decided to do to kind of surprise her was get her an e-gift card. So on Christmas Day and not before, she awoke to find an email with a gift card for $75 in it. And that was courtesy of me. So that was actually her first Christmas present of the day. And then...
Later on, I got a couple of DVDs.
Later on, you got some DVDs from me. One is a documentary about Fred Rogers.
And the other was the second half of the first season of a TV show we liked.
Yep.
called Loud House.
Yep, it's called The Loud House, and she already had the first part of that season.
Oh,
So.
and by the way, folks, it was after he moved in permanently, we upgraded
Oh yeah,
internet and TV.
yeah. We no
again.
longer had the basic services. I put everything back to the top. We now have gigabit Spectrum internet with It's a gigabit down, 35 meg up, and we have the movie channels again, and just like we did back
In the spring.
in
And
the
now he can
spring.
actually enjoy them.
And I can actually enjoy them
And without using a phone or a Lady A device to do it.
right. So it's been working out, and I've been liking it, and I just got to get through this winter. And
So then we get to his. What did you get for Christmas?
what did I get? Oh yeah, what did I get? How could I forget what I got? I got from Celeste. I got Knight Rider, the complete TV series. A very good TV show from the 80s, from the early to mid 80s. It's got David Hasselhoff in it. Really good series. Check it out. You won't be disappointed if you like that sort
Night
of thing.
was a K. For anyone.
Yes, Knight, and Writer with a D, not Writer with WRI. It's RI. It's Knight, and then RIDER if you want to look it up. So I got that, and then from Celeste's family. Oh boy, should I talk about this now?
Yes.
From Celeste's family, I got what was supposed to be the complete series of Star Trek The Next Generation. I should be happy about this. But you'll find out very quickly why I'm not.
Oh, and I did finally get Home Improvement.
Oh yeah, she did get Home Improvement. She actually got it from one of her relatives. And she got it as an early present on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
So I was grateful that someone in her family was actually able to find it when I failed in that endeavor. So we do have it. Thank goodness. So we have Home Improvement, we have Knight Rider. Star Trek The Next Generation was the next thing that was that I got for Christmas. And we get it here. And I'm looking at because I got a little CD wallet to put the DVDs in, so that I could kind of keep everything together and not have it be in the flimsy packaging that it comes in.
Because we've learned that Little House on the Prairie comes in the same type of packaging.
So.
And a good thing that his sister ordered 2 copies, because one of the copies has since gone to the trash.
Yeah, and that's a long story. I tried to. Yeah, I don't think I'll get into that here. That's just too depressing. But Star Trek is almost as depressing, but I might as well mention it. We're organizing it, getting it all organized so we can put the seasons into my brand new CD wallet that we got. It's another gift that I got from the family for Christmas. Only to discover, while doing the organization, I had season 7, along with seasons 4, 5, and 6. But I had seasons 4, 5, and 6 a second time. So instead of having 7 seasons, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I had
4, 5, 6, 4, 5,
4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, that's not good. I'm missing the first 3 complete seasons. So much for Star Trek being a complete series. Somebody majorly screwed up here. We're gonna fix this. So I called up Celeste's parents, because it was a gift from them. And I said, we got a problem here. Let's do something about it. So I got the gift back to them. That was a week ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
Just last week. And they
mailed it back.
They mailed it back. They got, in fact,
We've got a new one.
they just got the replacement
yesterday.
I should be happy about that. Oh no, I don't know if I'm not meant to have this series or what, but now we have the opposite problem. Now we have
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3,
1, 2, 3,
1, 2, 3, 7. So, had we been able to just keep the other series that we started with,
and order a new one,
and then order a new one,
we'd have 2 complete.
we'd have 2 complete sets. Good grief. So now we have, they're going to try a third time in total, second time with the return. Yeah. So we still don't have a complete Star Trek series. If we don't have it complete on the third try, I am going to throw the Star Trek, whatever I get, somewhere. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to find... Oh, how do you screw up? Okay, I've gotten... Knight Rider didn't turn out like this. That's a complete series. Home Improvement didn't turn out like that for Celeste. That's a complete series. Other series... Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Last year I had to replace a disc, and it was obviously easier to get the complete series again than to replace one disc in the series. So I did that, so that we'd have because one of the discs was kind of scratched up a little bit, and so wasn't playing right. So I got a replacement series. That came as a complete series. There was no issue at all. But heaven forbid we try and do this with Star Trek. Specifically Star Trek The Next Generation. Oh my God. What a nightmare. It's still ongoing. Like I said.
I see now his next adventure is to the Amazon headquarters where it comes from.
Right. And be like, okay, who do you got working over here? How the hell do you screw up twice the shipment of a very popular TV series? I mean, is everybody that gets this thing... I mean, has anybody ever gotten I'm starting to wonder now if anybody's ever gotten a complete series of this series. Mm-hmm. Because it sure seems way, way harder than it should to get this series. So, I'm kind of ending the year on a little bit of an unhappy note because of that, but otherwise it's gone. It's actually ending pretty well, really.
He got some nice gifts, some Skittles and a candy cane.
Yeah, that was
Christmas
cute.
tree cakes.
Got some Christmas tree cakes.
Rice Krispie treats.
Yep.
He got
I think that's it. I got the Star Trek thing, got the Knight Rider stuff, and yeah, I believe that sums it up. If I as far as my Christmas stuff, I did get to talk to my brother. They're still doing well up in Seattle, so maybe next year I'll see them, because I didn't get to see them at all in 2019.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. So, what do I hope to do this year?
Go to Canada.
Go to Canada. I'd like to do that this year, even if I don't quite make it all the way across. Maybe I can at least get to the border. I would like to possibly go visit friends in Richmond, Virginia, and Monroe, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully I can do that this year. I think, and
I'd like to go to a baseball
and I'd like to go to a baseball game of some sort, a major league baseball game specifically, because I haven't been to one of those in over 30 years. Because the last time I went to one of those was in 1988, and I barely remember it. I do remember it, but just barely. So I think that does it, folks. Wish me a good year. I hope it's a better one than last year.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope we don't get behind on bills.
Yep, I hope we can keep things going. And it looks like after, it's only been a month or two now, about a month and a half, I guess. So far we're doing good. So hopefully we can keep everything going. So that is my 2019 year in review. Hope you liked it. Hope it wasn't too long. These things usually are pretty long. So we'll talk to y'all at the next video. Whenever that is. So
like probably to continue Star Trek saga.
Right. Yeah, we'll probably update everybody on the Star Trek saga when I've got an update. Because that is just ridiculous. How do you screw up twice? I could see once. Even that's kind of like, how do you, it's a big TV series. I might even do a separate video later regarding that. Because that warrants its own video. So you all take care. Have a wonderful year. And remember, welcome to 2020. The year where you can hear, see, taste, and smell the vision. Bye-bye, everybody.